Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Before we start, quickly, hey, make sure that you hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, click the bell notification so that you don't miss another episode or video or whatever of any podcast series or any other gameplay series or whatever. We are going to be switching full-time to D&D content. I know, sorry, unfortunately it's going to be D&D content only, but also we're going to be doing some tabletop RPG games, and we're also just going to be doing some storytelling games as well. We're going to be doing some Our Life Beginnings and Always video. That's going to be really, really fun. That's going to be live over on Twitch. Link to Twitch channel is going to be down in the description below. I know I am rushing this. I apologize, but something amazing just happened. 1D&D was just officially announced today, and we are going to be going over the Unearthed Arcana Character Origins 1D&D video that they have just published on their YouTube channel, on their official website, and on D&D Beyond. It's going to be super fun. I cannot wait for this. All right, so if you are on D&D Beyond, you got to go to that webpage. You got to go to sources. You got to go to 1D&D Beyond play test. Click on that. Click claim now. And then once you claim it, you get to do whatever you want. It's very easy to follow. I probably missed out one step, but it's very easy to follow along and do all that stuff. You can even download the PDF to follow along to this. So please do that if you want to. But we're going to be going over to this. We're just going to be going over this whole video. I only watched about 3 minutes of it, and it is super cool. It's super fun. I cannot wait. I'm so damn excited for this. Let's get right into it. Screw it. Let's just get right into this shit. You know?
We have a new Unearthed Arcana, but this is a big one. This has to do with the player's handbook that is coming out in a couple of years. So where do we begin? We begin with Origins, right?
Appropriately enough, we begin at the beginning. And so this Unearthed Arcana is the first in what's going to be a series of Unearthed Arcana articles that come out every month or so over the course of not only the next...
So, we are getting rid of editions. That is the first thing that I need to clarify. We are getting rid of editions. That is what D&D has stated. I believe that is what Jeremy here has stated, the game designer and architect of D&D. That is what other people have said. They are getting rid of editions. So there is not going to be a 5.5E. There's not going to be a 6E. There's never going to be a 7E. There's never going to be any more editions after this. We are getting only one D&D. It is going to stay like that for however long they want to until they change it up and then they bring back editions or whatever. We are going from editions to now just one D&D overall thing. It's not even going to be an edition. It is literally just going to be one giant bubble. And they're taking all the old editions, first edition, second edition, third edition, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, however many editions there are, they're getting all of those. We're bringing it back. We're bringing it all the way to 5E. And we're even getting 5E, and we're putting it into this one giant bubble. We're stirring it up into this big pot, and out is coming one D&D. New rules, updated rules, new spells, updated spells, new races, updated races, all that stuff. It is one giant patch. No, it is one giant update. It is one giant expansion. You could even say it's one brand new game. This is going to be freaking incredible, and I'm so damn happy. They just said we're going to get an Unearthed Arcana series. Now, what do I think that's going to be? I think it's going to be a series of books, or whatever it's going to look like, you know, digital or physical copies, whatever. And instead of it being like the Unearthed Arcana that we know today, where it's not official, where you can't play it, and DMs mostly say it's not official, can't play it. It is going to be official, but it's going to be called Unearthed Arcana. It is going to be you can play it. You can. It's official. It's going to have a stamp of approval, all that stuff. This is it. There is no, you know, oh, we got to wait for it to be updated. No, that's not going to be it. This is it. As soon as it comes out in this series, as soon as it comes out, that's it. You play it. There is no wait and see. There is none. It is one D&D. There's not going to be waiting for an expansion or DLC or whatever you want to call these modules. It's not going to be like that. There are going to be modules. There are going to be all that stuff. Sure. But as soon as an Unearthed Arcana episode or a series book or whatever you want to call it, as soon as that gets released, that's it. It is done. It is released. It is published. That's it. You play it. End of story. All right? That is what's going to happen. Now, let's get back into it.
Next year, but probably the next year and a half or so, where we're going to present different pieces of the player's handbook, but with brand new content, then also familiar content, but with new elements, updates, and this is the chance for D&D fans to let us know what they think, to really lend their voice to the chorus of D&D fans that will be really letting us know where they want us to go next with this game that many of us have been playing for decades, and so many people have been playing since the 5th edition Player's Handbook came out in 2014. And so, with this first one, we thought, why not start at the start? And that is figuring out where your character in D&D, where did they come from? And so when we say your character origin, that's what we're talking about. What in your backstory helped shape who you are and was formative for you before you became an adventurer? Your adventuring life is largely expressed by your character class. And so character classes we'll get to in some upcoming Unearthed Arcana articles. In this one, we're going to be looking at 3 main elements that together express who you were in the earliest stages of your life. And that is your character's race, your character's background, as well as whatever feat that you get as part of that background. Because yes, one of the new things here, which some of our recent D&D books have already signaled was coming, and many fans have already guessed coming, that everyone's background will now give them a first level feat. But we'll talk more about feats, I think, a little later in the video.
So they just mentioned that now, with this new update in Unearthed Arcana series, which is going to be the very beginning, which is going to be your race, background, and feats that are going to come with it, you are going to get a first level feat. That actually sounds really cool. Now, what I got from Pathfinder players is that the customization in Pathfinder is very expansive. You can literally pick and choose feats and skills and all that kind of stuff. If they're going to go down where you can pick feats, and however many you can pick, maybe you can pick one at first level, so you get a first level, only one first level feat. At 5 or 3, you get one, and then it just progresses like your class. So every time something really big happens with your class, now I don't know because they're updating everything, which is so cool. I love it. You know, because it was really broken. How I think it was Rogue or Warlock. You automatically picked your freaking subclass at like level 2. It was like level 2 or something. Like you automatically get it, and everyone else had to wait till level 3, which was ridiculous. That's insane. That now they're redoing balances. They're redoing so much stuff, including feats. Because I will tell you this, that there was pretty much only, as soon as I read I can't remember what feat it was, but it's literally no one, the enemies that come near you proc advantage, and even when they try to leave, you get advantage rolls against them as well. So if they're coming at you and they're leaving you, you get advantage on attacks. and you just hit them. I can't remember what it's called, but Cavalier has it. Fighter Cavalier has it. It's super, super cool. It's super freaking broken. There are other broken feats. And now they're going to make it so, okay, you get a feat at first level from your background, no matter what. That's insane. That is amazing. That is great. That helps with, immersing like players and DMs really getting into the story that they're creating and, building as they go along on their journey, going from the tavern, or maybe they were in prison or something and they're, they have to break out of prison and that's like the first session, or maybe they're in the middle of a war and something like that. Like wherever your campaign starts on day one, on session one, you are literally growing. You're picking up new things as you're going along. That is going to be insane. That is going to be amazing. That is going to be super, super cool. And I can't wait because I've always wanted something like that. I always wanted a little bit of something to where it actually feels like I'm growing. And I don't want it to just be multi-classing. I really don't. I'm not that big of a fan when it comes to multi-classing. If I could just pick one little feat to kind of take the spot of just picking a class, and I don't want to pick the whole class, I just wanted one thing that's from that class. If I can just pick that and have that be a feat from a background that I pick, amazing. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. That way my DM doesn't have to have me write an extra little snippet of bullshit backstory just to say I picked this class. No, I don't want that. The DM doesn't want to read it. The DM doesn't want me to freaking do it. It's too much work on me. It's too much work on them. Cut back on the work the DM has to do. If the DM doesn't want to do it, but guess what? They freaking have to. Otherwise, they're going to forget about it. And it's going to be more work in the long run. It's not going to be fun. It's really not. So, the less work the DM has to do also means and also translates to less work that players have to do, which I love. And everyone should love. It shouldn't be, oh, it's the DM. DM signed up for this. Make them do all the work. No. DM didn't sign up to take on unnecessary work. DM didn't do that. And I'm actually super excited because I'm going to be doing another video. I'm going to be doing a collab video with a few other people on this. Super, super cool. Super huge news. Yeah, if you don't know, you don't know. If you already know, yeah, I'm also freaking pumped about it. So, but again, a lot of updates, feats becoming with their background. Huge and awesome. I'm excited to see and what they're going to say to make it so it's not going to break the game or break anything.
So to begin, since this is about origins, let's start with race.
So your character's race in D&D represents your ancestry in many ways. When you make your character, you decide, is your character a member of the human race or one of the game's fantastical races? Various race options have appeared in many of our books over the last 8 years. Now is our time, in this Unearthed Arcana, to revisit our old friends, the races that are in the player's handbook. And so here, we're going to be able to look at, all of us together as D&D fans, the latest versions of humans, elves, dwarves, and others. Many familiar aspects of those races are still here. Many of the traits that people have been using for the last 8 years, they're right here on the page. But then there are also new traits. And some of those traits that we've been all using in our characters have new options. Great example of this. In the dwarf, you still have stone cunning. But now, a dwarf, as long as they're in contact with stone in some way, whether they're standing on it, touching it, dwarves now, a certain number of times per day, can give themselves tremor sense, meaning they can sense through the earth itself if there are creatures nearby, moving objects. We're really leaning into the mythic story.
That's freaking huge. So if they're doing that, that is a huge sense to have as a player. That's incredible. So this is what I was talking about. This is what everyone was talking about, is expanding what features and abilities and benefits a race gives the player. Experimenting what else can or should a race give the player and give the DM and just overall give the game, instead of it just being a race, instead of it just being, oh, you get a point here, a point there, you get these two languages, you get some weapon proficiency, armor proficiency, a game proficiency, an instrument proficiency, and all that kind of stuff. Because really, I never really spectated a game where a player actually benefited from having proficiency in one type of instrument or one type of gaming set or whatever. I never ever caught wind of that. I never ever saw it. I never heard of anyone ever using it. That could just be the DM. That totally could be. However, it could also be the player for not bringing it up. But whatever the case may be, it seems to not be that big of a deal. And now they are giving us things for these races that are going to be a huge deal. Tremor Sense is a big damn deal. It is a big freaking deal to have Tremor Sense. It's incredible to have it. So now that dwarves have it, as well as their stone cutting or whatever it was, yes. Thank you. And we're also going to get a snippet of Tiefling, I think. I think they're about to mention Tiefling as well. So, if that is going to be the case, I am all for it. I am extremely all for it. Thank you.
Stories of each of the race options in the game and looking for ways to make them sort of the version truest to themselves. Like
Right.
something that we would talk about while working on them is, we want this dwarf to be the dwarfiest dwarf.
Right.
We want the elf to be the elfiest elf. And so we've been looking at ways of not only maintaining continuity with what sort of the general silhouette of that race option is in the 2014 Player's Handbook, but again, bring some new elements to the foreground. Give you some more fun things that you'll be able to do during play. So that's another element. People are going to see in the races that ones that maybe in the past didn't have an active ability, something they could do during play. Now,
so before we move on a bit, 5e is the base. 5e is going to be the base. So the three books, the three rule books, the Monster Manual, the DM Manual, and the Player's Handbook of 5e, those three books of 5e, those are going to be the base. They are bringing the first edition and all the way to fourth edition or 4.5 or whatever to 5e, and they're updating all those things to fit within the 5e realm of rules and playability and all that stuff. So that is what they are trying, that is what they are saying. So to clarify and to kind of, correct people, they are bringing all the old editions and moving it into 5e. And then once they do that, 5e is going to be this one D&D. It's going to be this last, the very last edition, if you will. Even though there is not going to be a 5.5 edition, there's not going to be a 6th edition, there's not going to be a 7th edition. This is it. This is it for however many years are going to come after this update. this is the last DLC, this is the last expansion, this is the last game. All right? Just want to clarify.
They might have one. And so the dwarf's tremor sense is an example of this. Now, the dwarf has something that they can use that makes them feel dwarfy and will have usefulness in adventures, while also having some of the familiar traits that they had before. Their resistance to poison, for instance,
Right.
still here.
I love the narrative hook of that just because if you're a miner, if you are a tunnel digger, like in a war, you are extremely sensitive to vibrations.
Yes.
You're just ultra aware all the time. So that's perfect for that playable race.
Exactly. And you will get to see things like that in all of them, where we took something that was there before, and often it's just we turned up the volume. What can we do to this to make it even more fun? Give a new dimension of play for people as
While working on my book, I realized that it is a lot. It is very easy to scale power down than it is to scale it up. And so I am happy if they're going to scale things up to broken tier, because it is easier for the DMs to take things out than it is to put things in. It is easy to just say, nope, 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 yes. Nope, 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 yes. It is very easy to do that than it is to start from nothing and trying to build on that. Why? Because there is no examples when you start with nothing. There is nothing there. Therefore, you cannot build something in an efficient and easy manner. Can it be done? Yes. Yes, it still can be done. However, the efficiency and the ease of building something from nothing is very difficult, very tedious, and very annoying. Why? Because your sense of scale and leveling is going to be completely different from another person. So, if everyone can agree that something is too OP, then everyone can work together to scale it down. Versus everyone agreeing that something is really trash, it's going to be very, very difficult to have to scale it up. All right? So I'm glad they're turning everything up when it comes to power level, or just use and versatility, than I am with them saying something completely different and quite the opposite. So thank you. Totally happy about that. And I know some of you might not agree. By all means, do all the work.
as they play their dwarf, their halfling, their gnome, what have you. In some cases, there are also options where before there were none. One example I'm really excited about is if you play a tiefling, you now have several really interesting choices. Choices that we began exploring years ago in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and now lean into here in this UA for the player's handbook. And that is when you create a tiefling, you decide what your infernal legacy is. I'm sorry, your fiendish legacy. And one of those options is infernal, but your legacy also might be abyssal, or a new third option, which we're calling chthonic, which has to do, each of these options has to do with different lower planes. And so infernal means your legacy is connected to lawful evil planes. If you pick chthonic, it's neutral evil planes. And if you pick abyssal, chaotic evil planes. Now, of course, the tiefling's moral outlook is not connected to the sort of origin of their mystical powers, which are shaped, those powers, by this choice. So if you want the tiefling you have already in the 2014 Player's Handbook, choose the infernal legacy, and you're going to see you have the familiar abilities, although you have a little more now. because now, in addition to the magical abilities you had before, you now also have the firebolt cantrip, because you're going to be able to hurl fire thanks to the legacy that you have.
Because that's very much the fire and the pits and the flames are basically what evokes that type of setting for anything infernal.
Exactly. Whereas if you pick Abyssal, you have a completely different set of spells that you have in you innately, and then also your damage resistance is different. So infernal tieflings have the resistance to fire that tieflings have in the 2014 Player's Handbook, whereas abyssal and chthonic tieflings have other damage resistances. This sort of structure of giving you choices that maybe you didn't have before is something you'll see in a variety of places, not only in this Unearthed Arcana, but in future ones as well. Now, there's a...
I feel like this makes more sense than actually the Asimars. A lot of people actually remember the Asimars seemed a bit too overpowered, and it kind of felt weird and redundant to have, the main Asimar and then 2 sub races of Asimar. And I kind of understood that. It kind of really didn't make much sense. It kind of, because to me, tieflings already felt like the fallen angel, the fallen Asimar, and there didn't really need to be a point to have the fallen Asimar or the scourge or Asimar, whatever is the technical replacement for fallen angel. So Asimars, they're the angels. Tieflings, they're like the fallen, like the fallen angels and the devils and the demons and all that stuff. So it didn't really make much sense to have a sub race in the Asimar, race group. Now that's kind of like the controversy thing, and I think majority of players and DMs agreed. And there's also some other things that people agree need to be kind of tweaked with the Asimars, and hopefully they do that in this in this new coming game. So it kind of now tieflings having these sub races, it kind of makes sense because they already established that there's a difference between devils and fiends, and also there's been an established difference between devils and demons throughout history, throughout historical history context, not in the game but in actual real life, that there is a very distinct difference between devilish monstrous grotesque things from hell, or whatever your religion's appropriate term is for the underworld. Underworld meaning hell or whatever. And that there's also a big difference between, demons amongst themselves too. So it's very interesting, and I think it makes sense for the tiefling to have sub races because there's that story, there's that lore in both D&D and also real life historical context, versus Asimar or Asimar, or however Asim, I don't know how you freaking pronounce it. Many people pronounce it differently. I'm just gonna say Asimar, even though it sounds really weird saying it. There's not really that much difference between it. Now, there are archangels, yes, and there are normal angels, yes. And I believe that there's other kinds of angelic beings when you go deeper into the Bible and the Testament. So I don't know. I don't really go into that kind of stuff, really. So it kind of, now if they were to do it like that would kind of be very complicated and really hard to get into, versus tieflings having, sub races. It'd be a bit easier. So yeah, I think it makes a bit more sense now to have sub races for tieflings versus sub races for Asimars. So yeah, this sounds really, really cool.
Another fun choice that tieflings will have that they didn't have before, and it's also a choice that humans have in this Unearthed Arcana, and that is their size. If you are a human or a tiefling, you're now going to be able to decide whether you are medium, as they are in the 2014 Player's Handbook, or small. Because first off, in the real world, there are humans who are small, and so we want to make sure that's now an option in the game as well. And when it comes to tieflings, we added that option because some of the game's iconic fiends are actually quite little.
Yeah.
And so we thought, how fun would it be to see more height variance in tieflings? A theme then that we carry over into a brand new race that is also in this Unearthed Arcana. Would you like to talk about the...
Yes, I would love to.
So
these are very unique.
Yes. So in this Unearthed Arcana, we introduce a race that we're calling the Ardlings. Ardlings are also a people of the Outer Planes, like tieflings, and like Aasimar, who appear in Monsters of the Multiverse.
Oh, Aasimar.
And Ardlings are associated with 3 different groups of upper planes. You'll see there's a parallelism here. Tieflings are associated with sort of the three main segments of the lower planes. Ardlings are associated with the 3 main segments of the upper planes. They can be small or medium, just like tieflings, and all of their abilities are themed around, the heavens and whatnot, but also visually they are really going to stand out, because one thing that sets Ardlings apart from, say, their Aasimar cousins is they all have the face of an animal. And what we're doing here is
That is, I believe, biblically accurate. I don't know. I would have to Google that, but I believe that is biblically accurate. Anyone that does study the Bible, please do correct me if I'm wrong. But that is so cool. We're getting another race. I don't know if he said that this is going to be a sub-race or if this is an actual different race. But that is so cool. I'm loving it. I'm loving so far where it's going, because they are connecting everything together. They are explaining why things are happening. And I love that. I love it when designers and developers, when they're bringing something in that is new or maybe old and they're updating it, they are explaining why, and they're explaining the lore. They're explaining the story behind it. I love that. I appreciate it. Thank you for that. That is amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Really leaning into the fact that going all the way back to first edition, many of the game's celestials don't actually look like angels. Many of the game's celestials from the game's long history, and I'm thinking here of Gardenals, Hound Archons, many of the avatars of specific gods, many gods themselves in not only D&D's pantheons,
but general mythology.
Yes, but also in human mythology, have the visages of animals. And so that is true of the Ardlings, where when you make one of these folk who can trace their lineages to the upper planes, you also decide what animal appearance you have, whether you're a bear or a lion or a cat or an eagle. That is going to make it so that when you're walking down the street, people are going to know there's something special about you, especially when you then also temporarily sprout your spectral wings to go on short little bouts of flight. So this will also be the first time that we have introduced a race with limited flight in the player's handbook.
Right, and we saw that in a previous UA as well, but yeah.
So for all you DMs that don't like to deal with flying people, here's your answer. Although I think it's very ridiculous for players to not have flight, and they have to go up against flying monsters that could easily dodge any ranged or melee attacks, and even ranged and melee attacks that are magical. I think that's fucked up. I think that's bullshit. But you do you. If you want to do that, go for it. All I'm just saying is that's kind of bullshit and that's fucked up. So, yeah.
Yeah, this limited flight, because flight is an interesting thing.
Yes, and this flight definitely is just for little bouts because the Ardlings do not have physical wings all the time, but they can channel their connection to the upper planes to temporarily have these luminous wings that they use to, maybe reach a hard to reach place. I like to imagine that some of them, especially with their animal features, might sometimes just use this ability to get that cat stranded up there in the tree.
Yeah, nothing nefarious.
Right. Although just as tieflings determine their own moral compasses, this is true of Ardlings as well. So just because grandma might have been from Mount Celestia doesn't mean your Ardling shares the moral outlook of that plane. So you could play a sinister Ardling, and I think it would be quite interesting to see that in people's games in the years ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm already going to. I'm playing a bat Ardling, 100%. You have unleashed my humanoid bat fantasy already unknowingly. So I'm very excited for this.
And I can't wait to find out if your bat Ardling is from the exalted, heavenly, or idyllic legacy.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, no, that will require some thought.
Yeah, and because just as in the Tiefling, that choice then gives your character different magical abilities themed to the sort of group.
Okay, so the Ardling, I think it's the Ardling. They're gonna be a different race. Okay.
Of planes that your character's legacy is connected to.
So one of the races that is included right from the get is in the player's handbook for 2024, presumably, is the Orc.
So the Orc is another new race for the player's handbook that appears here. And people who have Monsters of the Multiverse will see this Orc is the Orc from that book. And we've decided that because for many, many years the Orc has been playable, it's long past time for the Orc to graduate to the player's handbook.
Right.
And
so many people play them.
yes, and take their place next to this other cast of characters. So I'm excited that Orcs are now going to be there in the game's core rulebook.
But man, Tieflings got there first. We also have backgrounds, and backgrounds have become so much more important than they were
All right, I'm excited for this.
Yes, and not only more important, but also more customizable than they've ever been before.
And more narrative weight.
Yes.
Like this is an important fact. It's super important about your character.
Exactly. And this emphasis on narrative is something that people will also see glimmers of also back in the race section of the same UA, because something that we offer to players now officially, this is something people have been doing in their games for many years, in a sort of story space between your race choice and your background choice. We encourage you to consider the possibility that your character might have parents of different humanoid kinds. One parent might be a dwarf, the other one might be a halfling. One parent might be a human, and the other one might be an orc. Some of these pairings the game has embraced in the past. We're now opening it up so to encourage people to realize many pairings are possible, and when you do it, what you do is you choose one of those, basically you choose the parent that gives your character your game traits,
Right.
but then you can mix together the visual qualities of the two to determine how your character looks. And so you have two options to draw from for the aesthetic of your character, and then again you choose which one is giving you your special traits, your character's size, and speed, that sort of thing.
And like you said, players have been doing this. So for so long. Like my own wife plays a gnome, half goblin, a noblin.
Right.
Like this is very common. You just have to choose the stats that you want to go with.
Right. Yeah. And so again, another example of us providing new ways of experiencing the game we're all already playing. So now let's go from that to then the backgrounds.
Yeah, let's get into the backgrounds.
And backgrounds are really exciting for me because of how we essentially deconstructed them into their component parts, examined each part, and then reassembled them. And so the first thing that people are going to see is that the default option now for your background is to build your own. In the 2014 Player's Handbook, we had a bunch of backgrounds you could choose from. And then we had a rule that said if you want to customize a background, here's how you do it.
They are now helping us, more so than ever, making our own stuff. That is what I love to see. Because keep in mind, this is not throwing away the old stuff. This is not throwing away 5e, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 2, 1. It's not throwing any of that away. Remember what I said. They are taking all the additions, putting them all together, slapping it, and making this the additions that would have come after this. They're saying, we're not doing any more additions for the foreseeable future. This is it. This is it. This is the next level. This is the next game. This is the next expansion, the next DLC, whatever you want to call it. This is it. One D&D is the new thing. And they are helping us with so much, from creating backgrounds, from creating our characters, from even creating our, just everything. They are helping us so much, and I love it. Hold on, I actually want to see what the quality is. I actually want to bring it up. And that is what I love, and that is what I appreciate. Some people might argue that, hey, that's a bit too, like they're babying us. No. Because guess what? Do I want to spend 5 freaking hours trying to create a background? Or do I want to see, how to do it, them have a little chart, and they do it for me, and then I see it, and then I see, oh, I could do this, this, and this, instead of me trying to do it, and then it's like, well, fuck, I messed up. Or I don't really know, and then I get frustrated, and then I slam the book down, and I don't do it. So, and I just love it, because then I get to see pairings that I didn't know that I could do. And that DMs can't say, no, you can't do it. And then I could just pull it up and be like, yes, I can, because they just did it. I could do it. I'm doing it. So, thank you to the designers and all the playtesters that were suggesting this, and actually, they took the idea and they ran with it. Amazing idea. I love it. Fantastic.
Do it. Mm-hmm. We've essentially kind of reversed the priority order, where now the default is build your own background, and we tell you exactly how, or choose one of the sample backgrounds that we provide that were built using the rules that we just gave you for building a background. And so what those rules include are some choices for your character that can be very meaningful for you, not only in terms of your character's story, but also in terms of your character's abilities. Because, first off, speaking of abilities, one of your choices in background is where you're going to put a floating +2 and a +1 to your ability scores. Mm-hmm. people are already familiar who've been playing D&D with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, as well as some of our other recent books like Monsters of the Multiverse that allow you to have a +2 and a +1 that you decide where they go in your characters.
Just to reiterate what he said with the Monsters of the Multiverse, that replaces Morning Caden's Tome of Monsters or Tome of Foes. It replaces it completely. If you go onto D&D Beyond, you cannot find that book anymore. It is now turned into Monsters of the Multiverse. So I just want to reiterate that because one of my friends who's been playing this for a lot longer than me and has been using D&D Beyond a lot longer than me, he did not know that. He did not know that his book got replaced by the brand new book of Morning Canaan's Monsters of the Multiverse. So for all the DMs and all the players out there, if you've been using D&D Beyond and you did not notice that, that is why you are so-called missing a book and you got a new book for free, because they switched it. They updated everything. Aasimars do not have 2 sub-races anymore. That's done. They updated it. It is now just one race, no sub-races. It's just one. Boom. So, in case you didn't know, now you know.
So this is going to feel familiar, but what's different is now that we're working on revising the player's handbook itself, where those bonuses now live in this playtest material is in the background section.
And it makes sense because you've been doing this. This is your background. This is like the life that you have led.
Exactly.
This is why you are more dexterous. This is why you're stronger, because you lifted greatsword. Like
yes.
You were a soldier. You know, this kind of equates.
Exactly, because background is all about what have you been doing for all the years before you became an adventurer. It has a meaningful effect on your character's stats. And now if you choose one of the pre-made backgrounds, people will see we have chosen what those ability score bonuses are, connected to the story of the background. But if you use the default option, which is building your own, just as you can in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, you can put that +2 and that +1, or 3 +1s wherever you want, just as you can with Tasha's. And the reason why we're doing it sort of both ways, where if you do build your own, you decide where they go, or if you choose a pre-made background, we decide where they go, because we also know there are many players who don't want to have to decide. And so if you just like, I pick soldier, soldier tells me to increase these 2 stats in this way, and then they're good to go. It's sort of the best of both worlds.
Well, and it illustrates the point very well.
Yes. And really many of the backgrounds that we provide are really just illustrations of how people can use the new background building system. So ability scores are a part of it. You, just as you do now, you in the 2014 Player's Handbook, you'll also get 2 skill proficiencies. You get a tool proficiency. You get a language. You also get a starting package of equipment. And even in our deconstruction and rebuilding process, even all those equipment packages have been examined, because we're embracing this build your own approach. One of the things we needed to do was make it so that all the backgrounds have equipment packages of the same value.
Yeah.
Because in the 2014 Player's Handbook, they didn't. And so now if people like add up how, the cost, they'll see, oh, all the backgrounds have equipment packages worth exactly 50 gold pieces.
Instead of just going for criminal or noble.
Right.
Right.
And one of the main reasons why we've done that is to empower this build your own approach.
Yeah.
Again, this was one of the issues. One of the biggest issues was some backgrounds had a better benefit to picking them in some way, shape, or form. And they are now seeing this. And one of the biggest things that they are now seeing it, granted it's not the biggest one, although it might be for Adventure League and for the hardcore gamers, is the money, is the economic system. And he just mentioned the two backgrounds that had the most money when it came from the pack. The equipment pack that you start out with when picking your background. That was very crucial because did, what I did and what I was able to do with my DMs was I said, hey, I don't like the starting armor. Can I just sell the shit in my backpack? Which is gonna get me enough to then I could just buy a set of armor. Then guess what? I have less money than everyone else, and boom, that's how it happened. They were oftentimes they were like, yeah, sure. Now they're seeing that, and now they're saying, you know what? To help balance everything out, everyone starts out with 50 gold in the shape of that's how much your starting equipment is. Your starting equipment, no matter what background you pick, is 50 gold. I don't know why I held up the... I don't know how many times I did that. But it's 50 gold. Amazing, fantastic. That is a step in the right direction. It's a step towards balancing. I love it. So, because yes, that is what I actually realized when I first started out D&D with my friends was some backgrounds gave you more money. And what I realized was that, hey, shit, if my healer can't heal me because they ran out of spell slots and all that crap, I need to buy health potions. And if I don't have enough money to buy health potions, we're fucked. So, what I most often did was I picked the background with the most money and ended up selling all the crap in it to just getting a bunch of health potions. Now, that is not the case. Now I can pick and not have to worry about money. So I love that. Thank you.
So then the other thing you get in your background, and we touched on it earlier in our talk, and it is, in my mind, the most exciting new piece of background, and that is you also get a first level feat. So in that statement, there are a few things for me to unpack. First off, I just talked about a feat and gave it a level. That's critical because people are going to see not only in this Unearthed Arcana, but in the upcoming Unearthed Arcanas over the next year plus, they're going to see feats appearing and every feat will have a level on it. The way to think of a feat is essentially a class feature that doesn't belong to a single class. And just as class features have levels, feats are now
Does that mean we can finally get sorcerers with sneak attack? Or artificers with sneak attack? Or barbarians with reckless sneak attack? Because that'll be fun. No, but this is exciting. This is what everyone's been waiting for. Was instead of just having to pick the human variant thing, Tasha's, variant of a race, and having to go for, having to forfeit some things to get a feat, or dark vision. Now you just pick one. You just pick one and you get it. And that you will get feats at certain levels. And I love that. Because then the DMs, now the DMs don't have to worry about things when it comes to things being too, I guess, difficult for players. Because now two people in the party can have that feat that I was mentioning that Cavalier has, which is enemies coming at them. They provoke the players to get advantage, an opportunity attack. And guess what? Not advantage, but an opportunity attack. And when they leave, even if they take the disengage, they provoke an opportunity attack. Broken as hell, and I love it. Sentinel. It was Sentinel. So now two people can pick Sentinel at first level. No matter what. Fantastic. Amazing. Maybe a freaking sorcerer, wizard, or whoever. They pick Sentinel. Awesome. Or Guardian. or um, uh, Tavern Brawler. I wish Tavern Brawler got an update. Hopefully it does. I really, really do. So many things, and now classes that have been ridiculed and made fun of for being so bad, they can now get feats to just say, you know what, all that, you know, the whole time where we didn't get an update, where we didn't get a buff, guess what? I, the player, can give my class, the class that I picked and the one that I want to enjoy and love, I can now give it a feat or many, many feats, which is what they are talking about right now, at certain levels to buff my own, to buff me, to make my ranger the most badass it can be without having to be forced to pick a subclass from a different book. I can now just pick 4 feats or 1 feat. The first feat that I pick can now make this ranger incredible, insane. And I don't have to pick Tasha's, uh, you know, race, the race in Tasha's cauldron of everything, and get that feat and sacrifice a bunch of other stuff that I want. Now they're saying, no, you get it, and you don't have to sacrifice anything. Thank you. This is huge. This is fantastic. I love it. I hope they keep it. This is not broken. It is the most balancing thing ever. I love it. So, thank you.
Going to have levels.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so there are several reasons for this. One, because we're really embracing feats in certain parts of this playtest process, backgrounds being one of the main parts of the game where we're doing that, we want to make sure that feat selection is not overwhelming. And one way for us to make it so that it's not overwhelming is to break feats up into smaller groups. And one of those ways that we're doing that is with levels.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
So for instance, if something in the game tells you, go pick a first level feat, then you know immediately, well, then I can ignore all the feats in this book that are for 4th level, that are for 20th level, or any other level that might be on the feats. Instead, you can just...
He just said that you can get a feat at 20th level. I think in gaming history, just in general, this has got to be the best fucking update in the entire gaming history. This is just incredible. Like, everyone has been waiting for this. Oh my god, this is incredible. I am so hyped for this. This is, oh my god. This is incredible. This is what we've been waiting for ever since 2014, and even before that. This is what we've been waiting for so long. Now, people don't have to be forced to play Pathfinder Edition. People can just say, guess what? I got one D&D. Bring your Pathfinder, totally fine, but guess what? We got our own. Hells yeah. This is incredible. This is fantastic. Because do I appreciate it when designers and game developers put in systems to help players and not have to like force everything on the player by themselves to be overwhelmed with so much knowledge and trying to have to remember things and trying to have to pick and choose things to strategize stuff? It can be fun, it can be doable, but the thing is with D&D Beyond, since it's already such an open scale of everything with character customization, you can get lost in it and you can make a decision that could hurt you because you weren't thinking a certain way, because you weren't taking a step back, calming yourself, and say, hey, at what level am I spending the most time at what level, or what am I mostly doing with this character? What am I doing? Here they are saying, we got you. We're going to help you out. here's a feat, here's a group of feats at first level that you can only pick at first level. Don't worry about the other ones. Push those aside, push those aside. You can only get these. Now, this is where the balancing comes in. You can only pick a certain feat, only one, at first level. Which is great. Because then at second level, you have better, I'm putting air quotation marks because they could just be, they could be okay, they could just be on the same level, they don't even necessarily have to be incredible. You know, you probably won't even get a feat at second level. You might get it at third level, which is totally fine. You know, having one every other level is totally fine. It's not going to be the end of the world. But still, just having that, having them tell you, hey, we realize that it can be overwhelming and you can get lost, especially for a DM trying to remember things. You know, because we don't want the DM to have stacks of papers behind a tiny freaking wall. A tiny freaking, like, 6-inch screen or whatever. I don't do that. I don't have that much space behind a DM screen. Are you kidding me? Most DM screens aren't even that big. It's mostly 4 freaking panels. You know how much notes I can make with my players and the DM rule and the monster rule and the dungeon master rule? I could have enough notes to expand past any DM screen made on the market. And that's including my campaign notes. That's including encounter notes. That's including puzzle notes. So having them help me shrink the pile of notes that I need to make, I am all for it. I am happy about it. I'm excited about it, and I am appreciative. I appreciate that.
Focus in on the first level ones.
And this allows those universal traits that don't belong to any specific class to have a variance of power that feels like more in tune with your leveling up.
Exactly.
Like it allows you not to.
Anyone else wondered why the GIF had weapon proficiency? And what I mean by weapon proficiency, I meant guns proficiency. Anyone wondered why they only got that and no one else did in Spelljammer? Well, guess what? Now you'll be able to have it, no matter what class, no matter what race you pick. Or actually, not what class you pick, no matter what race you pick. So, boom. Awesome job. Fantastic.
So like I'm just picking from the same pool of feats as I've always done. Like no, you can get a feat that is much more strong.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but also something people are going to see is that when you examine the first level feats in this Unearthed Arcana, if you're familiar with the feats that have been in the game in the last 8 years, some of them have, in addition to including some sort of special benefit, have often also included a +1 to one of your ability scores.
Right.
You'll notice reading this document, none of these feats have a +1 to an ability score. And that's intentional because that is actually one of the signs that you're looking at a first level feat. Because when you see some of the higher level feats in our upcoming Unearthed Arcanas, some of those feats will still have a +1 to a particular ability score.
There's the balancing. There's the balancing, and I like it. Because so many DMs were saying that this is how players are broken as hell. Because there are feats that you can get that'll give you a +1 to a certain stat, to where you can go from a 17 or a 16 to an 18 or an actual or flat out 20. Now, you can't do that. First level feats aren't going to have that option. They might be in second level, I don't know. I'm thinking it would make more sense to have them at third level when you get your subclass. I think that's where they should be. Or maybe at that point, you get a +2 instead of a +1. That's incredible. Because keep in mind, He mentioned 20th level feat. He mentioned that. Jeremy mentioned it. You know, the head designer mentioned 20th level feat. Could that mean a +5? That would be insane. That would be incredible. That opens the door more for campaigns that start at level 20. That'd be incredibly awesome. And I'm all for it. Already good step in the right direction. Love it.
Score. But again, one of the signs of a first level feat is they don't include that. And because first level feats are not meant to change your ability score, because when you're building your character, there are already other things that are manipulating your ability scores.
Right, those initial factors. Whereas when you move forward and you start hitting other levels, you are faced with the, do I increase my ability stats or do I go with a feat?
Right.
And this kind of softens.
This, like he's about to mention, this softens that stress level. This softens the amount of stress that is on the player and the DM. Now, I don't have to worry about a feat, you know, bumping up a score and be like, okay, where do I put this number? Okay, if I have this feat in this background, I should have these numbers here, there. No, I don't have to do that anymore. I can just say, here are the numbers. I put them there. Done. Don't even have to worry about it until level 2 or even level 3. Thank you. There's a reason why DMs have session 0 when it comes to creating characters. It's because so much happens when it comes to creating a character. So much work happens because there's that possibility of a person going variant human or a variant race now and having to choose a feat over something else. It is very, very stressful when it comes to putting numbers where you want to put them and balancing out things. It is incredibly stressful. So this helps balance things when it comes to power, and it also alleviates that stress. It is this is incredible. This is so fantastic, and I love it.
That as well of like, well, you're still getting a benefit with some of these feats.
Well, you're not only getting a benefit, but it's a benefit your character didn't have before.
Right. Yeah.
This is a pure addition that we're providing now for everybody, and we have that in mind as we decide what qualifies as a first level feat and what doesn't. Basically, anything that's going to dramatically increase character power in some way, people are not going to see as a first level feat. That is the domain of higher level feats. Where the game's math can handle adjustments to raw power. Most first level feats are about increasing a character's versatility and speaking to different key backstories. And you'll see that these feats are, they all are featured in at least one.
First level feats are going to be for flavor. Totally fine, totally enjoy that. I love it. I love that so much. After that, power. Boosting those raw numbers, crunching those numbers, being that mathematician that I am not. I am not a mathematician. I just stick with basic math. That is all I do, and even then I fuck up with that shit. So thank you for taking that stress off of me and off my DM and putting it somewhere else. Thank you. That's amazing, and I appreciate it immensely.
Of the sample backgrounds in this document, so you can also see, looking at the sample backgrounds, how to match first level feats with background if you decide to build your own background. And again, if you don't want to, you just grab one of these pre-made backgrounds and the background just feeds you a particular feat. For instance, if you pick the sailor, you're going to get Tavern Brawler. And the reason for that is because in the little story that we provide for the sailor, it's because on your long journeys, you have spent a whole lot of time in taverns, in different ports of call.
Yeah.
And And in the process, you've gotten really good at participating in brawls.
Whereas like criminal, you get alert, I believe.
Yes.
Because that makes sense.
Yes, because you want to be very alert.
You gotta look out for the soldiers of the crown or whatever.
Exactly, exactly. And people are going to see that alert, which is a returning feat, has new functionality.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited about this whole approach that we're taking with backgrounds of it's all about building.
Again, because he just said alert is getting new things, is going to be different. If it is turned up, as in it becomes, it gets into that broken, OP area, it is easy to turn it down rather than turning it up. So do keep that in mind. I am hoping that it is OP versus people having to turn it up to match everyone else's needs and wants.
Character.
Your character's story and making certain meaningful game mechanic choices that reflect the story you have in mind for your character. And each of the sample backgrounds that we provide are really there to inspire you, to show you the kinds of backstories that you can have for your character. So that's why you're going to see, again, not only some returning backgrounds like soldier, like sailor, acolyte, but you're also going to see brand new ones like cultist, pilgrim, and a number of others, all meant to show a different aspect of a character's life that
was Pilgrim, wasn't Pilgrim an old background? Or am I thinking Hermit? Because Acolyte, yes, it's an old one. Cultist, that sounds awesome. So I don't know. I think I'm just confusing Pilgrim for Hermit. But anyways, sounds awesome. Love it.
could have been formative in who they are.
Yeah, and it's such a good. It helps for a point of inspiration how you role play your character as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and add like the meaningfulness of the backgrounds. Like backgrounds were always cool before, but now it's like, okay, this has oomph, a lot of oomph.
It has a lot of oomph because its background is also where you can express your character's culture, where your character is from. Some of those elements that used to exist in some of our character races, those elements now exist in background. That migration of sort of culturally encoded elements migrating to background is a philosophy that informs a number of the design decisions in this particular UA. It's why, for instance, to go back to one of our race options, if you look at the dwarf in this Unearthed Arcana, the dwarf does not have mountain dwarf and hill dwarf as sub-options anymore. And there's a reason for that. It's because
I didn't really find a need to have dwarves given a sub-race when it came to mountain dwarf or hill dwarf. I really didn't understand it. Honestly, I still have a gripe with dwarves getting a resistance to poison. I really don't understand that either. That's just my own personal preference. With the book that I'm writing, dwarves aren't even going to get a resistance to fire. They're not going to get a resistance to poison. They aren't going to get a resistance to anything, really. So, yeah. I don't know. But I'm liking where this is going. I really, really do. I really, really am liking the changes they're making, because it is making things easier for the players and for the DM. I am liking this. This is going to be fantastic. I really, really do appreciate them doing all this, collaboration between them, other designers, and the player base, people that have been playing this far longer than most. So I really do appreciate that part, and a lot of the changes that I'm hearing so far, I am liking it because I don't see how it can hinder anyone's game experience, because so far all I've heard is let us take the stress that you've been dealing with creating characters and writing down notes and doing all that stuff. Let us take care of that. You guys focus on what you need to focus on. You guys worry about all that crap. You want to have a flavorful background? We got you. Follow this, you're set. Oh, that background has more money than this one. Guess what? Not anymore. They both have the same amount of money. Oh, that background has that kind of feat, but it doesn't really make much sense, and you want this background because it kind of goes with your player, your kind of flavorful character. Make it your own. Bam, swap them, do whatever you want. Beautiful. Beautiful. Fantastic. Now I don't have to worry about which background I want to pick. I can just go, all right, I can create my own. Boom, let's go. This. Bam, done. I get a feat. Amazing. Here's all the list of first level feats. Bam, done. Get one. I'm good. I don't have to worry about crunching numbers and all that stuff. I can just go, here are my numbers. I rolled them. My race gets those benefits, or my background gives me those benefits now. Done. Boom. Boom. There's all my numbers. Now I don't have to worry about the feat that I'm going to pick to add more numbers to it, because there are none. There's no more additional numbers to add from a first level feat. It's all going to be in the next level up. So, I love it. It's fantastic.
Those options were only cultural for dwarves. In our D&D worlds, those are really cultural designations that different dwarf communities have taken on. And also in some D&D worlds, those names don't appear at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And unlike, say, elves, who actually have different mystical abilities based on their connections with different environments, whether it's wood elves who have particular magical abilities because of their connection to primeval forests, or drow who have, their magical abilities because of the millennia they've spent in the magic-saturated Underdark. Dwarves don't have those associations. And so instead of having a choice, which was again cultural, and culture now is reflected by background, we focused in on, let's make the dwarfiest dwarf. And so in a few cases where maybe before there's an option that's not there anymore, really often the option is just moved someplace else. And so any of the cultural cues that a person before was searching for in, say, their dwarf character, they can now replicate those, and often with more oomph, in the background system. For instance, if you want to really lean into, the fairy tale dwarf who not only has all the characteristics we expect of a dwarf, but also is like a miner and this sort of thing, then I encourage people to go pick the laborer background, where you're going to get all the stuff you would expect for a character who's really leaning into that archetype.
This all connects to Monsters of the Multiverse as well.
Absolutely. So anything that you're seeing here is designed to play side by side with books you have already, and that includes recent books like Monsters of the Multiverse. So the dwarf, for instance, that you see in this Unearthed Arcana is meant to exist in the game side by side with the Dwergar that appears in Monsters of the Multiverse.
Dwergar. Oh my god. Oh. Oh god, dude. Jeremy, I love you, man, but oh god. It's not Dwergar, it's Dvergar. Dvergar. Dvergar.
The elf in this UA is designed to stand side by side with the sea elf Eladrin and Shatterkai, who are in Monsters of the Multiverse. Same with gnomes, where we have the sort of the player's handbook gnome that we're looking at here, and then we have the additional gnome option of the deep gnome in Monsters of the Multiverse. So really, when you look at the player's handbook version of something, that is the most sort of like archetypal, universal version, the most common version that you're going to see. All of those other versions that we have, particularly in a book like Monsters of the Multiverse, which we designed to be a big collection of options that would then be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the options in the new core rulebooks, you then, when you put them all together, have this amazing family of options. And these new options don't take away those, but instead, in many ways, create some, when you look at one and look at the other, it really then highlights even more what's special about each of the options.
This playtest material is meant to work, and the future product, the future player's handbook, very nicely with the books that already exist.
Exactly. Now, there's a lot we could say about the feats that you're getting from those backgrounds.
Correct.
And I'm really excited for people to read through all of them, to see what's going on in these feats, rather than going through each one of them, as much as I would love to, because there's so many
there's a lot to look at.
There's so many fun things in these new feats. Really what I'd love to do is talk briefly about some of the philosophy behind the decision making.
So to kind of recap that, and I really don't like pausing and repause and pausing and playing and all that stuff. We're literally just now breaking the halfway mark. I know it's a long one. This is gonna be a very long video. So kind of recap. This is not taking away any. This is not destroying past editions. They've been saying this for so long. People are still saying that this is a new edition. It's not going to be the same. It's literally going to be the same. It's just add-ons. All they are doing are adding on stuff. The only thing that's different is that there aren't going to be any more editions. That's it. There are no more editions. This is it. It's one D&D. Like this video says, one D&D. It's one D&D to rule them all. Because it's taking everything. All the past editions, all the past expansions, everything that we've known about D&D, it is taking all that stuff and putting it into one big freaking game and adding sprinkles, icing, fondant, whipped cream, all that shit. It is adding all that amazing goodness and just making the biggest cake or whatever you want for dessert or dinner, whatever. It is making the biggest thing of that and giving it to you, giving it to all of us. The DMs, the players, everyone. And they're helping us with everything. They're helping us with character creation. They are helping us with feats. They are helping us with balancing. They are helping us with storytelling. And I bet you they're going to be helping us with the rules, with combat system, with role-playing system, with monsters, with NPCs, with cities, with rolling things like death saves, failed saves, successful saves, saves against attacks or magic things. It's helping us with so much. It is literally taking all the stress from being a player, from creating a character, from creating campaigns, from creating monsters, from creating feats, from creating backgrounds, from creating everything. It is taking all that stress and giving it to them, or just literally incinerating all of it and saying, hey, we know how stressful it can be. We get it. We get the frustration. We get that you are tired of throwing your book across the room and saying, fuck it. I can't do it. I can't stand it. It is too much work. I don't want to play. They're saying, no. We're not accepting that. What we're going to do, we're going to take that extra work and we're going to throw it away and we're going to give you this. Less work for you. More work for us. Less work for you. more work for us. And what I mean by for us, I mean for them. So that is what they are saying. That is what they are doing. That is what they're trying to do. And I appreciate that immensely. And we should all appreciate it. Because, like I've been saying, even though they say that they have been turning things up when it comes to scale, now that can mean power, or it doesn't have to mean with power, but I think it does. The best thing about when you get something that is overpowered, the easiest thing that you can do is just turn it down. You turn it down. Like I will tell everyone, it is easier. Anyone will tell you this. It is easier to cut something down to size than it is to make something big. That is true with construction. That is true with writing. That is true with drawing. That is true with everything in life. It is easier to build something up. Or no, it's easier to cut something down than to add to it. I hope I made that good. So, if I fucked up, I meant to say it's easier to cut down than it is to add. So, there you go.
Here. I've already talked a bit about some of the things that distinguish a first level feat from higher level feats. There's another thing that informs some of the decisions we made about the feats here, and that is, first I'll talk about feats we revised, and then I'll also talk about brand new feats.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we were revising a feat that already existed in the 2014 Player's Handbook.
Also, I think even if a feat or a class or whatever does not show up in this Player's Handbook, again, like they've been saying before, it does not mean that you cannot use it. That's not what they're saying. What they're saying is that this Player's Handbook is going to be with the 5th edition handbook. We are getting another Player's Handbook, a revamp, an update, an edited version, because there are no more editions after this. There is none. When this announcement went live today, August 18th, and when the teaser came out, and literally when the first idea, when the first tweet or first post or whatever was saying, oh, 5.5 or oh, 6th edition or whatever, they announced they are not doing any more editions for the foreseeable future. The reason why I say foreseeable future is because they could change their mind at any given moment. There are no plans. There aren't any plans for new editions. That is it. This one D&D is the final edition. It is the final DLC. It is the final expansion. It's a brand new game that's going to be added to the current edition. Although I think it would make more sense that everything else is getting added to this. So.
And made the determination that it was going to become a first level feat. We not only wanted to make sure it was delivering something with very clear functionality and clear value, we also wanted to make sure that the feat is useful to the people who most archetypally would want to take it. Here's what I mean by that. If you look at the healer feat in the 2014 Player's Handbook, you read the title and you think, hey, I'm playing a life cleric, I'm a healer.
Right.
That's probably a feat I want to take. But then if you read it,
Not very beneficial.
no,
Yeah,
because
it's
that
not.
feat was actually written for a person who maybe doesn't have any healing ability.
Right.
So we have kind of turned that on its head. And we have now made it so that this feat is beneficial to people who are already healers, while also providing a healing ability to somebody who lacks it. So
Yes. This is the type of updates that we need, clarifying all the misconstrued and all the wacky labeled shit. Because healer, or whatever they said, the healing feat was the most useless healing feat ever. It was incredibly useless. Even if you were a healer, you would not pick it. And even if you were just some average Joe schmuck who wasn't a healer, you wouldn't pick it. Because it was so dumb and it was so useless. It was incredibly useless. There were other feats that were just better than that. Now again, that's only if you were a min-maxer, or you've been playing for so damn long that you know every inside and out of this game. So, yeah.
That's the kind of the needle we're threading in a lot of these, that maybe a feat that before seemed to be calling to a particular type of character, but then didn't connect with that character at all. We have now made it so that it is beneficial for that kind of character. Like, many life clerics are now going to want to take the healer feat.
Thank you.
But then also many non-spellcasting characters, I think, might be drawn to the healer feat because of their character's backstory, because of the battle medic ability that is now in the healer feat that allows you to actually heal somebody using a healer's kit. And you'll see that again and again in these feats.
See, he said a medic's kit. He didn't say a spell. He just said a kit. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at the equipment or any kind of kit or whatever, looked at it and said, I'm not going to use this. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at that stuff and said, it's useless. How soon? What's the soonest opportunity I can have to sell it? Because I've just never, expected to use it. Now, granted, hem rope or any kind of rope or torches, sure, I'll keep it. Unless someone has the light cantrip. Just because someone can't see in the dark. It just didn't seem that useful. And now they're giving us feats where we can get benefits and actually getting incentivizing. They're giving us incentive, like they're giving us a reason to keep this equipment, to keep our packs, to keep our, let's say, our gaming set, to keep our instruments, to keep whatever the hell that's in our starting equipment. They are now telling us, hey, this feat really works well with that stuff. It works insanely well. You might want to pick it, or you might want to look into it. So, amazing. Nice.
Things that are either going to be beneficial for the individual character who we expect would be attracted to the feat, or beneficial to the whole party. Here's an example of that. In the alert feat, now first level feat that, again, the criminal has, not only do you get a bonus to your initiative roll, but you also now have an ability when initiative is rolled, you and another member of your party can swap initiative.
Which is amazing. I love it.
And that
Beautiful. Beautiful. Because that's not broken. That is incentivizing teamwork. That is incentivizing people to actually get along and communicate and brainstorm. That is incentivizing, hey, you got those spells ready, right? Cool. I got this feat that allows me to swap places with you. So guess what? When they try to attack us, when they get closer, you can throw this. And when it's my turn, I can show some support. and laying down cover fire or whatever. That's amazing. Teamwork is something that should always, 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 always be prioritized. Teamwork and team building. I love it. Because I feel like the feat system always it never built that stuff. It never tried to build a healthy, relationship between players. It was always give me a feat that's only gonna benefit me, that will, benefit the party and that me not dying. But over there, whatever, healer can worry about that stuff. No, this alert feat is now gonna benefit everyone because it's now gonna make it so that you're gonna be like, okay, this guy's got this ability, and I got this. Let's swap places so that when he does it, it actually is more, sensical. It makes more sense, and it benefits everyone for him to go first, and then for me to go after him to do whatever I need to do. Okay? That's amazing. I love it. That's fantastic. And I love this. I love his face right here. You can see the happiness in this man's face. That is what I feel on the inside. Jeremy, you are a treasure.
That ability alone is going to make many groups like, oh, we are so happy if somebody has alert.
Thank
because
you.
we
I
have
love it.
all playing D&D been in that situation where like, if only this particular character was able to go earlier.
Exactly, yeah.
And so now the character who is, because this alert feed is designed.
Jeremy, thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. And thank you to everyone at Wizards of the Coast that think of this. Thank you. You are a treasure.
To me, this is the person who is exceptionally ready to jump into action and can help one of their buddies do so.
And that's another example of like alert was a very like for my character only feat.
Right. Right.
like I just want to be.
It wasn't just alert. It was a lot of other feats that were just like that, where it was selfishness, and that is not what it should be. It should be team building, teamwork. It should not be me looking out for me and then, spamming I need healing over and over again. That's not what it should be. Do you want to know why so many people made the meme in D&D that I need healing? As soon like when Overwatch came out, and even before then, because all the feats and everything else were selfish. It was only for you, the person that picked it. Now, it's for everyone. And that's amazing, and I love it.
First,
Right.
Now you have the option to like pass that on to someone else in your group and be a good party member,
Exactly.
if given the option. But yeah, like that's lovely. That dual purpose for all these feats.
Yeah, and
nice.
then the brand new feats are designed to fill some character type gaps that existed before. Gaps that really came to mind for us as we were designing the sample backgrounds.
What's an example of one of the new feats?
So musician
Right.
is one of the new feats. And with the musician feat, you can not only gain proficiency with 3 musical instruments of your choice, and sort of getting 3 tool proficiencies used to be a function, one of the optional functions of the skilled feat, but now you get a more flavorful version of that, not only in the musician feat, but also elsewhere. So you get to choose 3 musical instruments that you're proficient with, but then you also have the ability that whenever you finish a short or long rest, you can give inspiration to a number of people who hear you play a song on one of your instruments, and the number of people who can gain inspiration is affected by your proficiency bonus. So in other words, the higher level you get,
it scales rather nicely. Yeah.
And so, in any group, we're like, gosh, we'd really love.
I'll be taking that when I pick a bard. Holy shit, that'll be great.
To have sort of inspiration in our pocket, ready to go. And for anyone watching who doesn't know what inspiration is, because a lot of groups don't use it, That's essentially having advantage in your pocket, ready to use when you need it.
Right.
And so a person with the musician feat using this inspiring song can give people inspiration. So this brand new feat is not only filling a gap in our previous feat list, but it's also doing exactly what I was talking about earlier about the healer feat, and that is it will be useful to also someone who's already a musician,
Right.
most notably the bard.
The bard. Yeah.
Because this ability to, whenever you finish a rest, to give a certain number of people of inspiration is not an ability the bard has. So this combines really nicely with a bard's kit.
Yeah. So you can become the most bardy bard, or you can play a fighter who also on occasion takes out loot.
Yeah, who before battle plays this beautiful song and everyone is like, now I'm ready to go. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah, and again, that is the philosophy here throughout, is how can we make people who, again, want a taste of something they don't have happy, but then also make the people who already have the thing also happy. Magic Initiate does this too. Magic Initiate, like some of the feats we've published in the past year or two, now tells you, hey, not only do you get some spells that you can cast for free, but if you already have spell slots, you can use them to cast these spells too.
And we saw this in the evolution of like Tasha's and other books where that you very much keyed into the fact of like, yeah, I got this first level spell, but like I can't upcast it with Magic Initiate.
Right.
So it's a little like frustrating if that spell can scale up if you like use a higher spell slot.
And now you can do that.
Yeah, if you want to hellish rebuke someone, which I
Right.
love doing, you can do so now.
The feat also has been given broader functionality because people are going to see in this feat a reference to something that is new.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about. I assume you're talking about spells and how they're defined.
Yes. So not only does the Magic Initiate feat refer to what we're about to talk about.
Spells were always an issue with a lot of people, and obviously the most frustrating and infuriating thing in D&D. Spells. The magic system in general was just so infuriating to understand and to even for the DM to come up with rules. As a writer, the magic systems are incredibly difficult to write out, to flesh out, my bad, and to make sense. It is incredibly difficult. There's a difference between hard magic and soft magic. It is ridiculous to understand. It is incredibly difficult. And if you don't know what I mean by hard magic and soft magic, look it up, and you will understand why D&D's magic system is just so infuriating. It is infuriating beyond belief. Because it does not fall into one of those categories. And the reason for that is because of rules. There are some rules, and yet there are rules that are written out, but they're not. They don't have the rule that you're looking for. And what I mean by the rule that you're looking for is basically when a title says something and you think it does something, but it does something completely different, or it doesn't do exactly what the title makes it sound like. Like the healer feat, you know. Let's say the healer feat was a spell or something. Now they wrote it out to make more sense, to give it more rules, and to help others. there are some spells in D&D that are not like that. They are written out. However, there's a lack of explanation. There's a lack of commitment to things. It's like an open-ended question, except that openness is very, very small. And it's really annoying because it's that small. It is ridiculously small of a space. And when you're writing a system like a magic system, you don't really want that small of a gap when it comes to rules. You really don't, because if it's that small, just close the door. You know, even if it's like this small, close the door. If it's this big or this small, open it. You know, leave it open. You know, but that's the thing, that a lot of the spells in D&D are that open-ended question. They have a centimeter gap where they're not closed all the way, you know, or their gap is this big, but it's not open. And so that's the problem. And so hopefully they're fixing it to where it's either closed or it's open all the way. And what I mean by open all the way is that you can almost do anything. You can do limitless. You can do anything, just about anything with it. And closed means no. Here are the rules. That's it. That's all you can do. Done.
Talk about, but there are references to it elsewhere in the doc, one of those being in the High Elf, and that is, we now refer to 3 new spell lists. There is an arcane spell list, a divine spell list, and a primal spell list.
Ooh.
In our work over the last few years, as we've been preparing to start unveiling this material, we realized that as the game expands, as there are new subclass options, also with the introduction of a class like the Artificer, with feats, with magic items, with a variety of things that give you access to spells, there has been a growing need for us to have a new type of spell list, and that is a spell list that isn't tied to a particular class, but is instead tied to really the source of your magic.
Right.
And so in this case, arcane spells are all about manipulating the background magic that's in the entire multiverse. Divine spells, as people would expect, come from either gods or the realms of the gods. And then primal spells are about drawing on the magic that is in not only sort of the elements, but also in the spirits of nature. And the way we sort of divide it is, divine is really magic pulling from the outer planes, primal is pulling from the inner planes, and arcane is pulling from sort of the multiverse writ large. And so now, rather than us directing you for certain spell choices in particular contexts, like the previous Magic Initiate was like, all right, go pick from the spell list of one of these particular classes, which then suddenly, the moment we introduce a new class like Artificer,
right.
then we need a whole new feat for that.
Yeah.
This feat now grows with the future of the game, because now anytime that we introduce a spell,
That's another issue with the spell system, is that there's a lot of spells that are not gonna grow with the game. The same thing for feats. There are some feats that are not growing with the game. Now, since they are adding new classes and new races and new spells, or not even new spells, but new places and new encounters and all that stuff, now they have a chance to revise all those systems and bring in new content that will grow with the game. So now there's going to be a new magic initiate feat that will grow and that will not stop at one new class that's a spellcaster. It'll keep growing however many spellcasters are added to the game, which is amazing, which is great. So now they're revising the whole spellcasting system to fit within these 3 categories, which is amazing. So now, instead of it just being from wizard, warlock, bard, or druid, it is now, all right, pick a spell that falls into one of these 3 categories, which is great. I love it.
Spell itself will have for you a tag that tells you if it's arcane, divine, or primal, or a mix, because some spells, as people are going to see in some of our upcoming Unearthed Arcana, fall into multiple categories. This is going to have a tremendous payoff, not only for like, oh, this later supplement added a new arcane spell, I have access to the arcane spell list, I can now have access to that spell without it having to route through a particular class.
Yes, thank you.
A much more elegant solution.
Yes, and
is.
it also is another, it has another purpose for us. It's a way for us to take.
This is another reason why this update is so important, so great. It cleans up so much of the mess ups and the mishaps that past editions, including 5e and including the ones that have just been added, it cleans up so much of those mishaps and mistakes they made with this new update. This new update is basically, you know, the street cleaning crew, the janitors, and I appreciate everyone that, you know, everyone that does janitorial, you know, service. I appreciate all my school's janitors. My school janitors were incredible. They were amazing people. Fantastic. Appreciate your school janitors. They are amazing. Okay? Appreciate them. They're fantastic people. You know, and even theme park janitors. They're amazing. They're fantastic people. So this is that role. They come in, they swoop in. Your locker's not opening up. They got the key. They're gonna open your locker for you. Boom. Save the day. Now you can get to class on time. You need something that needs fixing in the theme park. It's in the janitor's realm of expertise. Janitor's gonna swoop in, save the day. So I love it. This is amazing. We needed this for so long. We needed something like this.
This notion of these sources of magic, which are mentioned, at least arcane and divine are, in the 2014 Player's Handbook, but now we actually sort of give them rules teeth, rather than just sort of being a story wrapper, because arcane and divine and then occasionally primal when it has been mentioned have really just been a flavor wrapper. Now they actually have substance in the game itself, that there is a list that you can go look at and go, here are.
That is a rule when it comes to writing. You never, ever, ever mention something in your story that is not going to have any significant importance in it. So, for all my writing buddies, if you are writing something and you mention something that is not going to come up at all, and is not going to have any weight in the story, do not add it. The rule is, if your story works well without it, don't add it. If your story doesn't work well without it, then add it in. And that is what I love. Because literally, none of my friends explain the magic system with, it's like arcane magic, divine magic, and then sometimes primal magic. No, it was never like that. It was either, is it illusion magic, or is it a charm magic, or is it this kind of magic? It was always like that instead of divine, arcane, or primal. And even though I'd be like, hey, what does this mean? Like, why is this in there? They'd be like, they would literally tell me, don't worry about it. It's nothing. It's not important. So thank you for giving it meaning and some value to the game. Thank you.
The sort of universal arcane spells. Here are the universal divine spells, and so on. Now, people will have to wait for upcoming Unearthed Arcanas to see how classes use those lists, because classes are going to use those lists, but classes are also going to have access to spells that go beyond those universal lists. But again, that's for future us to talk about. But again, I think already this is super exciting. Being able to reveal these new types of spell lists that provide a tremendous amount of flexibility for characters, not only that will be able to be made with this series of Unearthed Arcana articles, but also that will be able to be made in the future.
Yeah, it is a very exciting time. This is a very weighty UA. We're going to be doing this often this year. Somewhat semi-monthly, but yeah, not necessarily strictly defined.
Yeah.
In terms of timing, but we have a lot of UAs coming out this year. We need a lot of player feedback. So.
And there is so much in this UA that we could talk about.
Yes, I know. We could have got.
I actually downloaded the PDF, and I'm going to be talking about it a lot over on Twitch and here on YouTube, and I'm also going to be comparing it to how I'm going to be writing my D&D book. Because now that we're getting a format and we're getting a peek at what it's going to look like, I can now write my D&D book, my D&D module, to fit this upcoming format of D&D. Which I think is going to be great, and it's going to help me write it. It's going to help me so much now that I'm going to see all, the categories of magic and all that stuff. I am super happy about it, and I'm so grateful because this is actually going to help me a lot when it comes to writing everything. So we're going to be covering it. So, and I suggest that you do as well. Don't always come to my videos first. Go to their videos first. Then come to mine, or come to your favorite, YouTuber that covers D&D. Go to their videos first, please, because then you get to hear it from them, and then you get to hear it reiterated from a D&D content creator, because D&D content creators, each of them are going to have different interpretations of stuff when it comes to classes, feats, abilities, and all that shit. Listen to them first. To the people that actually published it and worked on it, listen to them. And then listen to the player people, because DMs are still players. They still play the game. So, take it from the creators and then the players.
Gone through everything, and we could have made this a 3-hour video.
And there are, before we sign off on this video, there are a couple other gems in this UA I would love to
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm eager to hear.
So first, I encourage people in the rules glossary to look at not only the revised definitions of a couple of our conditions, they're also going to see there's a new condition that's in play, the slowed condition, and people are going to see in the upcoming Unearthed Arcanas updates.
Yes. Because that was actually something that I've been trying to do for my Frost Giants. A slow condition instead of an outright freeze. Yes. This is going to be so amazing. It's going to be amazing.
To a number of the game's conditions, so I'm excited to see what people think about that. Also, I encourage people to take a look at the new rules for inspiration, because we've decided that rather than inspiration being connected to essentially just the DM awarding people for particular character choices.
That was also something that I kind of didn't like and agree with, was that the DM decided about inspiration. I didn't even know about inspiration half the time. It really meant that inspiration was not even a thing. So having them revisit that, I like and I respect.
Instead, inspiration is going to be something you can reliably get whenever you roll a 20 on an ability check, saving throw, or attack roll.
That's balanced. That's a balance because that means you have to roll a nat 20. It cannot add up to a 20. You have to roll a nat 20 on any of those rolls. Saving throws, ability checks, attack rolls, all that stuff. You have to roll a nat 20. That's a good balance. I love it.
We wanted a way to feed people inspiration through the system itself. And we love this idea of when you have a spectacular success, you're inspired by it.
Bolstered by it.
You're bolstered by it, and that can start creating this sort of snowball effect.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going for. We've also tweaked the rule on inspirations so that it's still the same, that you can only ever have one instant of inspiration. You don't get a stockpile.
And there's the balance part. You can only have one. So if you roll 2 nat 20s, you only get 1 instead of 2. So bam, there you go. Perfect.
Inspiration. It's not, you either have it or you don't. But we've now made it so that if something in the game gives you inspiration and you already have it, you can then immediately give it to one of the other characters in your group.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes, thank you. Another thing that adds incentive to teamwork and team building. Thank you.
And it's likely that people are going to have it because you get it by rolling a 20. And one of the new traits of humans in the game is humans, whenever they finish a long rest, have inspiration.
Interesting.
Yes. Now all you people can stop ridiculing humans because now humans are going to have inspiration. Thank you.
Every human in your group is going to start every adventuring day with inspiration. And that means then if the human gets inspiration and already has it, they can then give inspiration to somebody else. I think there's going to be a really fun sort of, inspiration flowing around in the party.
That adds a great support fee or a support feature to the party if you have a human and you also have someone that's a different race that plays the healer or any kind of support class. Amazing. Teamwork there.
And what people are going to see as they actually experience this in play, what the system is intentionally doing is encouraging you to use the inspiration, because there's more is coming.
Instead of just like greedily, like, I don't know when I'm going to eat this.
Exactly. And it's we often, when we're assessing different parts of the system, if we see something that ends up getting hoarded so much that it actually almost never sees use, that to us tells we need to change something so that this actually becomes a fun part of play and not something.
Because I can tell you, inspiration was hard to get. Just like rolling an at 20, it was hard. But I feel like getting inspiration was even harder than rolling an at 20. That you almost hoarded it like a freaking loot goblin. That you never sold it, you never got rid of it, you never did anything with it. Until your DM reminded you or some other player reminded you, because the DM's not going to remind you. And be like, hey, you got inspiration. You're going to be like, fuck. I wish I remembered I had inspiration like 12 rolls ago. So now they are telling you that no matter what, you are not going to forget that you have inspiration. You have another way of getting inspiration aside from just one person deeming you worthy. You are rewarded. Instead of just, you rolling a nat 20, like a critical or whatever, you get inspiration. And then now for humans, if you just want to play a human, and people can't make fun of you because now you get inspiration now for every adventure day. Which doesn't mean that you have to wait for another session. It literally means when it's another day within the campaign, you get inspiration. So, which is great because then you can give it to someone else.
that just gets marked on your character sheet and then you forget about it.
Is this the moment that I use it? That kind of almost anxiety. Like
Right.
like I've been in so many. You and I have been in so many one shots where it's like, well, I never used it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gone forever.
Whereas we want to make it easy for people to say yes.
Yeah.
To say, yes, I'm going to use my inspiration because it's likely more is coming right around the corner.
The getting a natural 20 thing is so exciting because, like that's such a cinematic moment or a great narrative moment of like I've been very successful.
And I can't tell you how many times I rolled a nat 20 and yet the damage roll that I rolled is so fucking abysmal that I'm like, God, I wish I could re-roll it. Or something. You know. It's just ridiculous.
And now I have a little bit left over, and you could roll another 20. It could keep going and going and going, and to see a game where like something like that happens. I mean, the odds are not high, but they're higher now to see something that kind of amazing at the table. Yeah, that's very very fun. So critical hits have changed as well. Can you elaborate on that?
We are experimenting in this Unearthed Arcana with a new take on the critical hit. So in addition to rolling a 20, now feeding you inspiration, whether it's an ability check, saving throw, or attack roll, we've now specified that if it's an attack roll and you roll a 20, it's also a critical hit as you would expect. But what's different here is it's only a critical hit if you were attacking with a weapon or an unarmed strike. Now, in most cases in our game, that was already the case in actual play. Because most spells in the game trigger saving throws rather than involving an attack roll.
Right.
Spells scoring critical hits was a more sort of rare occurrence than weapons scoring them.
Mm-hmm.
But we're exploring this option, and again, I really want to emphasize this.
Because it doesn't make much sense for you to score a crit, but the thing is, they still have to make a saving throw, and if they make a saving throw, they're still going to take that half damage. And if they have resistance, then they have it even more. So then that critical thing is kind of, it's just wasted. It's ridiculous.
This is a great example of a playtest giving us the chance to experiment with something.
Remember, this is not set in stone.
Right,
This is playtest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want to see what does the community think and how does this play out for them? Because what we're really trying to do is carve out a clearer space for essentially spell operation.
And also, if a critical hit, when it gets doubled, because that's what a critical hit is, it gets doubled, it has a higher chance of becoming an even number, or I like to say a clean number. And a clean number means instead of it being a decimal and then you have to round it, it's not that. It's not a decimal anymore. It is a clean number. It is just a whole number. So that means resistances have a higher likely of reducing that amount of damage by more than if it wasn't a critical. You have a higher chance of it being a dirty number and not reducing that much damage. So it actually makes sense.
Operations on one side and weapon and unarmed strike operations on the other. And the critical hit was already confusing for a number of people because I've actually lost count over the last 8 years the number of times I've been asked by the community, can spells score a critical hit? So funnily, this experiment in this UA will function for many groups the way they were already playing, because many groups had doubt that spells could actually critical, even though they could.
Right.
And so now we're experimenting with, well, just what if they can't? And this is a function of weapon use and unarmed strike use, which then also allows for us to do greater clarity, because then there's not that fuzziness before of like, take the dice that were involved in the attack and roll them twice. No, now we zoom way in. It's take the weapon or the unarmed strikes dice and roll them a second time.
Yeah.
Now, of course, people know that some people don't have dice for their unarmed strikes, but monks and others absolutely do, and we wanted to make sure this critical hit option was available for them, in addition to characters who rely more on weapons.
Yeah.
Now, there's an additional nuance here. The way we have worded this experimental rule, it is only player characters who score critical hits. Now, I need to unpack that.
Well, it's kind.
So first,
I don't know how I feel about this, because what he just said is that monsters, basically any NPC that a player does not control, because sometimes, if you have a companion, you roll for that companion, so that means your companion can score critical hits. What that means is non-playable characters that are controlled by the DM, they cannot score critical hits anymore, even if they roll a nat 20. I mean, for some monsters, it didn't really matter. At least to me, it didn't really matter, because as soon as the DM says a number, I'm not gonna start adding stuff up if it's already a really big number, like let's say 90 points damage. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna, start counting on my fingers and then make a reaction. I'm already gonna make a reaction, which is either gonna be like, God damn, or flip my character sheet over and be like, yeah, I'm dead. And then my party has to cast Revivify, if they have Revivify. So, it's this is interesting. I can see where they're going with it. However, to me, it didn't really make much sense. So yeah.
critical hits for monsters often play out in strange, unsatisfying, or
Yeah.
terrifying ways, and I'll
Yeah.
unpack those. First, they can be terrifying. Higher level terrifying is fine. First level terrifying can mean the character's gone.
Yeah, that's also another thing. Just how a player can be really terrifying to the DM at first level, a monster or an NPC or anything at level 1 scoring a critical hit can be just as, if not more, terrifying to the players and DM than the players are to the DM. I have seen level 1 parties be one shot or take so much damage it is ridiculous and questionable as to how, when a monster at challenge rating 1, 2, or 3, or even 4, or even 3, I don't know if I skipped 3, scoring a critical hit and knocking someone from 30 HP to 1 or 0 with just one critical hit. It is insane. It is ridiculous. It's just so incredibly questionable. So, maybe if they change the rule to challenge ratings of this group within this section, it goes from challenge rating 0 to, let's say, 10 cannot score critical hits, and challenge rating monsters from 11 to 30 to 50 to however high they are, or how high they are going to be now, they can score critical hits. I feel like if they did it that way, that would be nice. Or if it was just from 0 to 7, they can't score critical hits. From 8 to infinity, they can score critical hits. I think that's fine. I think that's okay. So, but I'm interested to see how this plays out because he still has to bring up another point.
So crits are extremely dangerous at low levels for player
Yes.
characters. You know, that bugbear critting your first level character might mean
That's it.
your character is
Yeah.
on their way to the grave.
Yeah.
And but then other times, because of how a monster's damage expression is built, a monster critical hit can feel unsatisfying. And the DM might say there was a crit, but the math doesn't really deliver the punch that you were expecting when the DM said that.
Exactly.
Also, because a lot of DMs use static damage, our crit roll where you're rolling a die a second time, there's friction between that
Yeah.
rule and how monsters are actually designed.
Yeah.
And then there's a further reason that we're experimenting with this, and that is monsters actually already have their own built-in crit-like mechanic, and that is the recharge mechanic.
That is true.
We use recharge abilities to deliver those scary, massive strikes.
Right.
Think of the dragon's breath weapon. When that happens, everyone is put on notice, and that is the scary moment. The DM decides when to use it. So the DM can make an informed decision when to crank up the difficulty in a battle. The DM has no control over a critical hit. Now, uncertainty is also fun because we like DMs being surprised, but that's where the recharge roll comes in, because the DM, once the DM decides to essentially press the things are going to get real button,
they get the button back.
they're not sure when they get the button back.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there is already this element of
Yeah.
uncertainty purposefully built into the recharge mechanic. And so what we're exploring is this notion of really monsters don't need crits because they have crits in another form.
There are some monsters at higher levels where they don't even need a freaking crit because they already do so much damage. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Like the Marut, the Enforcer of Contracts, or Deals even, literally has 2 auto-hit attacks that deal insane amounts of damage. It's insane amounts of damage. It's incredible. And again, there are some abilities that aren't spells. They're not spells, they're just abilities that require saving throws that monsters have. And when you score a crit on that ability, it could almost be completely negated, which is what he just said, where it's not satisfying, where the number, it doesn't give you that terrifying punch. It's almost like a, wait, are you serious? Like that's it? That's all it is? It goes from, oh my god, he crit me, he get, wait. Really? That's it? Did you roll that right? Okay. So, you see what I mean? The crit system is so weird. And in the previous versions, it didn't really... people forgot about it. People forgot so much and how far it extended that spells could crit. However, it was almost entirely dumb and useless and pointless for a spell to crit if it had people roll a DC saving throw and if they were already resistant to magic effects because of their race or because of their background or because of their feat. So, yes, I agree. Should spells crit? Not really, because too many of them require a DC saving throw. Should monsters crit? Not necessarily, because some monsters that are meant for a party of level 1s can TPK them or just kill one of them outright, and that's not very satisfying. That's not really fun, because at level 1, it's often meant for new players to get a sense of the game, and they can't get a sense of the game if they've only played for 1 hour. 1 hour is not long enough for people to get a sense of the game, which is why some one-shots They go on for an hour and 30 minutes, or 2.5 hours, or 3 hours. So, with that said, he's starting to make more sense now that I've heard some of his points. The crit system is a scary mechanic, and sometimes a not so fun mechanic, because of those monsters that can kill people when they're very, very low on the challenge rating. And sometimes, and also, there are monsters that already have their own crit system built into them, the recharge system, that not that you know not all legendaries have a recharge attack or an ability. Some normal monsters have a recharge attack, and that there are some monsters that don't have any of them because they already have, let's say, an auto hit attack or 2 auto hit attacks that deal insane amounts of damage, like the Marut. It's ridiculous that they don't even need a crit system. They don't. So hopefully, when in the next Unearthed Arcana, they explain monsters and how to go about creating them and how to balance them. Because as of now, I don't see monsters needing a crit system. I don't see them needing it.
And that is in recharge abilities. And those, the DM has a bit more control over, even though it's not total control, because again, once used, the DM doesn't know when it's coming back. That modicum of control is more in keeping with what we expect for a dungeon master. And so we're exploring the crit as it's essentially a special ability of player characters, of occasionally they score these surprisingly good hits that deal more damage than the weapon or unarmed strike would normally deal. This is a rule I am very keen to get feedback on, and hope people will try it out in their game.
I should also point out the monster that they use for an example of, not the dragon, but the bugbear. The bugbear is not like a monster that you shouldn't put up against a party of level 1s. It's not. You can definitely put up a party of level 1s against a bugbear. Totally fine, totally doable. You know, however, if it crits, when it crits, their reaction was true to how powerful the bugbear can be when it crits. As in, it is very likely, if anything, it will kill one of your players in an instant. So, yes.
And then we'll see where we go next once we get the feedback on it. Related to rolling the D20, there's also another significant thing in the rules glossary that I encourage people to take a look at. And that is, we have decided to embrace how many groups actually play. And that is, when you roll a 1 or a 20 for an ability check, saving throw, or attack roll,
Right.
a 1 is an automatic failure and a 20 is an automatic success. It will surprise some people watching that that's a change, because
I know, because I've been doing it, I don't know, for like 10 years.
yes,
at least.
Because for anyone who might not know, previously a 20 meaning an automatic success and a 1 meaning an automatic failure was only a function of the attack roll,
Right.
Yeah.
not of ability checks and saving throws. But what
That is actually true. That a nat 1 for anything outside of attack did not mean an auto fail. And a nat 20 outside of attack did not mean automatic success. That's not entirely true. Because outside of attack, when you do an attack roll and you roll a nat 20, you do not add anything to it. It is an auto crit. You auto hit. When you roll a nat 1, you do not add anything to it. It is an auto fail. You fail at it. That is it. However, outside of that, if you roll the nat 20, you add your modifiers or proficiency or whatever to help you fulfill that check. So even if you rolled a 1, you can still add. I don't know if you would succeed or pass, but you could still add. It does not mean an auto fail or an auto success.
What we have seen over the last 8 years is more,
which is very balancing. It's very, very balancing. So, and that was actually the solution I told so many people when they were saying that their players are scoring nat 20s when they shouldn't be. And I would tell them, is it outside of combat? And they would say yes. Here's the thing. Nat 20 does not mean an automatic success, and a nat 1 does not mean an auto fail outside of combat. Outside of combat, it does not mean that. Inside combat, it means it. So, for DMs that have been allowing your players to get away with the most obscene bullshit outside of combat when they're rolling a nat 20, that's on you. You messed up. You literally put that on yourself instead of reading the rules.
more and more groups use that rule for all of the D20 tests. And we decided, rather than having the rules being in friction with how people actually play the game, let's update the rules so that the game plays the way people expect it to.
Well, that's what's so much of was in this first playtest material is much of that.
Yes.
Of how people actually play or want to play.
Because we, over the last 8 years, through the many surveys that people have filled out that have been valuable to our work, we've been listening. We've been paying attention. We watch streamed games. We constantly play D&D. And all of that feedback, all of that play, all of that...
Can you believe it's almost 9 years since 2014, which means it's almost been 9 years since 5th edition's been out? That's insane. Which means when this comes out in 2024, it'll be 11 years since 5th edition's been out. Which is incredible, which means instead of it being 50 years, it'll be 61 years. D&D will be 61 years. Wow.
Observation has fed into what people are seeing in this Unearthed Arcana and what they're going to see in the months ahead.
There's two sides of the playtest material. Like, this is a moment in time where, like, all of everyone's feedback has led to this playtest material, and your feedback after this is going to lead to the final version. So be sure to playtest.
Absolutely.
Because this is not the final version.
Everything here is subject to change. This is really, this UA in particular is our hello.
Yeah, hello, we're listening.
Yeah,
yeah.
And the feedback that then the community provides in response will help determine what parts of this make it into the new core books, what parts do we set to the side, and what parts do we keep but change. And so what everyone is going to see, just like with the D&D Next process almost 10 years ago, you're going to see an evolution in these playtest materials, in the game itself. Also, the exciting thing, I think, for everyone is you're going to be able to use all of these playtest docs with your existing core books. We have designed these docs so that you can take each one, and other than the places where we tell you, all right, you know that thing in your book? Well, here's an update to it. Otherwise, all this material works with the core books you already have.
Great.
Meaning,
Great.
The UAs that are ahead will be very targeted, rather than it being like, here is a cross-section of the entire game.
Right.
Instead, we're going to drill into one piece, because that piece will now work with the books you have already. And so that's why, you know, in coming ones, we're going to drill deep on particular classes, and then eventually we'll drill deep on particular spells. as we build this. It's almost like we're building a mosaic that in the end, once all the pieces are in place, you will get a glimpse of what the new core books are going to look like.
This has to be very exciting for you. Like, beyond the rules and the playtest, this is like a very exciting time to be a D&D fan.
Yeah.
And to be making D&D.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
it's wonderfully exciting because we're able to take something that we love, feed the passion that we in the community have had for it over the last 8 years, feed all the conversations we've had internally that we've had with fans out in the world, and take all of that and let it flow into the game itself so that it can move now into its next generation.
That's perfect. I'm very excited for this video and for many more to come over the next few years.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. And people will get access to this UA on dndbeyond.com.
Yes.
That is also where you get to playtest. And that will be coming out sometime after this video first lands. So for this particular one, later today, you should get access to that. I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're not going to be busy at all.
So, yes. Subscribe to their channel. Subscribe to my channel, because we're going to be covering all the videos that they're releasing. We're going to be doing some reactions. We're going to be, having like questions. We're going to be doing all that kind of stuff. We're going to be covering it like this, really. And also off screen as well and during live stream. So please click the link down below to check my live stream page over at Twitch. I'm gonna be streaming this with a lot of my friends who do play D&D, and one who's actually starting their own D&D campaign with other Twitch streamers. It's gonna be super, super fun. It's also not just Twitch streamers, it's also people in his community. Link to his channel will also be in the description below. So yeah, like, comment your thoughts, your feelings, and your concerns about this coming update in 2024 that we're going to be talking about over the span of, well, I guess the end of 2022 and into 2023. And make sure to ring that bell notification so that you don't miss another video. And also subscribe, please do, please. And with that said, everyone, Fare Viking, Skål!